Welcome to another installment of the Vernon Snow MX Timber Sled versus Yeti head-to-head. Today's video, we've got the Swedish twins in for a service, and we're going to do a bit of a walk around to see what we're servicing and also talk about what we should be looking at when we're servicing these bikes over the course of the winter. Before we do that, if you're new to the community, I'd like to say welcome, and maybe check us out online, Facebook, Vernon Snow MX, or you can go to our website, vernonsnowmx.com, to see the other videos that we're posting in the head-to-head challenges over the course of the winter. So I'm joined today by Ian McKill, Mechanical Houdini at Rider's Edge Suspension. Ian, thanks for having us in again and for doing a bit of a walk around with us after the services that have just been done on the bikes.
Yeah, you're welcome. No, I'm happy to. Now that these bikes are broken in, they have roughly 10 plus hours or so on them. It's a really good time to get them in for their first service, have a real thorough once over, and just see how things are going. Things like engine oil, filter, adjusted the valve clearances. You know, we're going to look front to back at all of the necessary adjustments and wear items on this bike and make sure that we're set up for the rest of the year. And
I see some fancy tools in the corner here.
Yeah, one of the things we'll do at every service is we'll hook up to the Husqvarna E01 tool, and we can talk to the computer. We can see what stored codes are in the computer, if any. We can make adjustments to things like TPS, engine idle RPM, fuel, timing. So all things that can be beneficial to set up for a winter bike.
Does that report back to the mothership that I've been bouncing off the rev limiter all day? Or?
It actually does. We can see how many minutes under light load, medium load, and high load. So you can't lie to me. I can tell what's happened.
Time to break the XC1. So Ian, for guys and girls who are taking these home, putting them in their garage, and doing a walkthrough on their own, maybe just quick breeze through front to back, things they should be checking in between each ride.
First thing you want to do, if possible, is thaw your bike in between rides, because you're not going to be able to work on a frozen block of ice, right? So get the thing thawed out. The next thing we want to look at is fluid levels. We want to know, has our engine oil level changed? Has it gone up or has it gone down? If it's gone up, we need to know why. Is there gasoline in the oil? Is there moisture in the oil? If it's gone down, we need to know why as well. You know, are we burning oil? Is it leaking out? So that's a really important one. Then we'll check coolant, you know, to find out if our coolant A is going to be up to the task of freezing cold temperatures, and B, you know, keep our engine cool and not overheat. So we want to have the right fluid levels as well.
All right. And on the kits themselves, outside of the belt and chain, because we're going to address that in a minute.
Right.
So outside of that, is there anything on the kits that they should be taking a look at in between rides?
Yeah, you always want to look for wear. So whether you have worn sliders, you want to look for damage. You know, maybe you hit something under the snow that day, or maybe you didn't feel it, but you should still look for it. So if anything's bent, loose, misaligned, you know, track tension, those types of things, all things you want to look at in between rides.
Trees, small animals hanging out of the tracks, that kind of stuff, guys. We want to make sure we clear that up before the next ride.
Yeah.
So one of the key questions that I seem to be finding in blogs and threads on the internet about snow bikes, when it comes to mechanical questions, it has to do with belt and chain tension.
Yeah.
So can we maybe walk the viewers through today what we need to do, what we're looking for proper deflection, and what kind of chain tension and belt tension we should have?
Sure, we can touch base on that. It's going to depend a little bit based on what kit you're running, whether or not you're running a fixed strut or a third shock, because there'll be some differences. Okay. But in the case of the two bikes today, I mean, we've got a drive chain going from the motorcycle to the track, and we do have a third shock, so the chain adjustment is going to be the same on both. And then from there, of course, the Yeti runs the belt and the Timber Sled runs the chain. But those are all things we should be looking at, you know, frequently. You know, every ride, I usually check that.
All right. Well, let's dive in and have a look. So here we are with Helga, our 2017 Husqvarna FC450, mated to a Timber Sled long track. And Ian's got the cover off on the chain drive. So Ian, maybe just walk us through what we're looking at for tension.
Sure. It might be difficult to see, but the drive chain that goes from the engine to the Timber Sled has a chain tensioner right here. Basically, all that you need is a 9/16 open end wrench or box end wrench. You undo the lock nut. If we run the bolt down until we get it finger tight, we're going to need to have, you know, 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch of free play to account for our TSS going up and down. You know, if we run that chain too tight, it's actually quite stressful for the bearings and the life of the chain and the countershaft. So in the case of a fixed strut rod, we might be able to run the chain a little bit tighter, but in the case of a TSS, we'll want some slack there. So how much is the right amount? Well, once again, 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch is probably right. If you're really worried about it, you can let some pressure out of your TSS and you can cycle through the range of motion and you can find out how tight your chain is going to get as it cycles.
Okay.
But by and large, 3/4 of an inch free play there is pretty good. Onto the secondary chain, which is part of the timber sled. This one we can run fairly snug. There's not going to be anything that's going to cause that chain to get tighter or looser. So, if we had 1/2 inch of play there, that would be enough. And the way that we would adjust that is to loosen this lock nut and actually apply force to this sprocket to push against the front of the chain to get the desired tension and then tighten it up again. You might be surprised to know that these chains, especially in the plastic cover of recent years, they'll actually get hot during use. So I like to take that cover off every ride and find out, if my chain needs to be lubricated, we lubricate it. If you don't ever check that, you could find that when you pull that cover off, all of the O-rings from your chain might be lying in the bottom of your cover and the chain
Got cooked.
got cooked. We
Okay.
don't want that.
Good point.
Some guys actually even louver their cover to let some of the heat out. And then that brings us to, well, what should we put on our chains? Well, there's all kinds of different types of motorcycle and industrial chain lubes. I guess the best answer is even the wrong lubrication is better than none, but the lubricant that we found that seems to work best is chain wax. It seems to do quite well in the presence of snow and water and ice. So
Adheres well.
yeah, Maxima chain wax. The problem with chain wax is that they want you to put it on when the chain is warm. Well, it's pretty hard to get your chain warm on a timber sled, but with the bike dried out, maybe the rear of the track on a jack stand, you run it a little bit. We want to spray the inside of the links so that centrifugal force draws the lubricant throughout the chain. If you're just spraying the outside of your chain, that centrifugal force is not going to drive the lubricant through the pins.
Coat the inside of your cover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how often again? Probably every ride.
Every ride.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for that. And let's take a look at Anna and our Yeti setup.
Sure.
So here we are with Anna, like Helga, 2017 Husky FC 450. The difference between the two being Helga's made it to a timber sled, Anna has a Yeti strapped to her back end. The difference in drive systems between the two, timber sled runs a chain drive, Anna with the Yeti runs a belt drive. So Ian, maybe just walk us through this belt drive system and what we should be looking at.
So before we get to the belt drive, we're still utilizing a drive chain from the engine of the motorcycle to the Yeti, and we have to be concerned with the drive chain tension of that guy. So in the case of the Yeti, they've done it a little bit differently, but it's very innovative. We've got a chain slider at the bottom with a spring tension there, and so that's going to take up a little bit of the chain slack. And then if we need to make a larger adjustment, we're actually going to loosen off some of the bolts that hold the plate from the Yeti to the motorcycle. We're going to loosen them off, and this operates on a cam, so we can move the whole track system forward or backward to make larger chain adjustments. Easily done, works really, really well. And then onto our belt drive system. So the belt being more efficient than chain and sprockets. So these aluminum sprockets are lighter. The belt being lighter than a drive chain, it really transfers the power quickly, or it'll spool up quicker than a set of chain and sprockets will. But we have to tension the chain or the belt somehow. So the way we do that is with this pulley. And this pulley, if we move it closer in this direction by means of adjustment, we can set the proper belt deflection. And they've given us a little guide here that tells us whether or not we're within the operating limits. A belt drive is a really efficient way of transferring power. It's lighter and it'll spool up quicker. There's less mass there to accelerate. So if you really want to get the power to the track, if we have a drivetrain that's lighter, it's going to spool up quicker.
Okay, and how do we adjust and maintain this portion?
Well, it doesn't need any lubricant, so the maintenance is really easy. It just needs to have the tension set. And this pulley here slides back and forth to set the proper belt deflection. It's that simple.
Throw a wrench in, adjust it, and they actually have a guide in there as well to make sure that we're within the proper parameters.
Exactly.
So that's a wrap for this episode of Shop Talk with Ian McKill. Ian, thanks for having us into the shop today. doing a bit of a tour around on the twins. We've got a great season of filming coming your way, head-to-head comparisons. We're excited to see what these track kids do over the course of the winter. Find us on Facebook, vernonsnowmx.com. Check back frequently to find out what we're up to each week.